Hi, my name's Paul Denning. I have been working on a update to the Kaimana code provided by Paradise Arcade. I have updated it to use their new PCBs. I've rewritten the special move system. I've added character select, and this video is to take you through how to set this up as a new user for your stick that you've installed the Kaimana system into. And it will be split into multiple sections. I'm going to start off with a section for complete novices who've set up their stick, installed the software already, and then want to know how to set some basic settings. Then I'll go into a bit more in depth about how the character select system works. And then for the slightly more people among you who can program or want to get their hands dirty, I'm going to take you through how you can create new characters, how special moves are defined and can be altered, and the hardcore review at the end. There'll be a little bit of a deep dive into how the special move system works and some changes you might need to make if you want to extend this and take it even further than I have already. But we'll start with the basic settings. So I'm not going to go into detail on how you set up the Arduino suite or where you get the code or how you set up your joystick and how you've installed. There are videos to do that already. There's instructions on Paradise Arcade's website for the basics. I will link a good video that came out last year on how to hook up your joystick. Because that kind of does a good job, is still valid, is still totally valid today, so there's no point in me kind of retreading that ground. So we're going to start. You've installed the Arduino suite. You've downloaded my code either from my Git repository or from Paradise Arcade themselves. If they decide to host this, I hope they will. I think this should be used by everybody if they can. And when you open the project, after you double click on kaimana0.ino, then it should load in all these files at the top. And what you want to start with is kaimana underscore custom.h. This is your basic header file where some of the basic settings are set. If you are a complete beginner, you probably won't leave this file, but I suggest you watch through this video to the point where you no longer become comfortable, and then you can stop at that point. And I will touch in some of the other files later on for people who just, even with no experience, could make kind of some basic changes. So the first thing is Paradise Arcade have two different LED PCB kind of devices on their website. They have the original J2s, which have two LEDs per button, but they also have a new J4, which has four LEDs per button. So depending on which one you've bought, you want to basically have one of these two lines that I'm highlighting now set and one of them commented out. And if you don't know how to comment out, all you do is you put two front slashes before the line. So I'm using the J4s in my joysticks. So I have got this line here without the front slashes at the front that says we're going to have four LEDs per button. Pretty basic. But if you're using the J2s, put two front slashes in front of that and then remove the two front slashes from that one. Simple as. Okay. I'm going to leave them how my joystick is set up. Next, the depending on your joystick, you might have a leverless joystick. You might have a joystick with a original kind of ball or bat top. Paradise Arcade sell a joystick PCB, which is a 16 LED PCB that you screw in to the top of the joystick, but underneath your control panel, plexiglass, or whatever that's on top. If you're using that, then you want this LED per joystick direction 4, because there are 16 LEDs on it. There are 4 directions on your controller. That's 4 LEDs per direction. If you're using J4s in a leverless controller, then you also want this, because again, you have 4 LEDs per button that you have. If you're using J2s, or if you have some other system that I don't know about, or you don't have anything, then you can just leave it as 2 LEDs per direction. The next setting here, this is only for the PCB version on a proper stick joystick. if you hold in a diagonal, the default behavior, if this is set to be false, so this on the end you can set to be false or true. If it's set to be false, then if you hold in a diagonal, then it will light up both directions that you're holding. So if I'm holding up left, then the 4 LEDs that correspond to left and the 4 LEDs that correspond to up will both light up for a total of 8 LEDs. You might want that, that's fine. If you're not using a joystick and you're using a levelless, then this should definitely be false because each button is an individual set of lights. But if you're like me, I prefer to have, when I press a diagonal, just 4 lights in the diagonal, then set this to be true. And what that will do is the code will work out that if you're holding in a diagonal, say if you're holding up left, I'll do the last 2 lights of left and the first 2 lights of up because they're defined in a clockwise rotation, and so you'll just get 4 LEDs in the corner. I think it looks better if you do this as true, but obviously that's completely up to you. Next, we have the LED order. So this hasn't changed from the stock Kaimana code that Paradise Arcade used to provide. All you need to do here is set the first LED number of each LED in your setup in the order that you've hooked them up in the wire order. So if you have your Kaimana going straight to your P1 button, your P1's first LED will be the 0th LED because in computer programming we generally start from 0 when we're counting. So the first LED is actually the 0th LED, and in my case, because there are 4 LEDs per button, it will it will know that it will be the 0th, the first, the second, and the third LED. Then my joystick is wired into the P2 button, so that one will start from 4. So it'll be 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. So I go on my joystick, I go P1, punch my light punch, to medium punch, to heavy punch, to the next button, which in my case would be drive impact, but we'll call it, in this from now on we're going to call it P4. Then I hook it round and it loops back through the kicks. So I don't zigzag back to K1, I actually go to K4 next and then come back through the kicks K3, K2, K1. After that, I then go onto my joystick, into my joystick PCB, and the Kaimana joystick PCB, if you've screwed it in the right way up, the way that the lettering on the PCB is laid out, then by default, then or the way it sets, the left LED is first, then the down LED, then the right LED, and then the up LED, which is anti-clockwise. Oh, I think I said clockwise earlier. Sorry, I've got that wrong. It'd be anti-clockwise, but that you don't need to know about that. You need to know that here it's anti-clockwise. So you list them in that order. Oops, sorry. And then finally, you say the maximum number of LEDs. The maximum number of LEDs is basically the last number you had plus your LEDs per button. So in this case, an extra 4 on. So I've got 48 LEDs in total. And that's that. You don't need to worry about any of these. These do animation stuff. I will come back later on for advanced coders. You can skip those. You can skip all of this. This is all the combo information. This is for more advanced users as well, so we can skip all of that. We are now good in here. So that is the basic setup. If you really don't want to do anything, all you have to do is set up this stuff here, and you should be good to go. So just do a little pause there so I can do a timestamp. Right, next, character selection. So by default, the way that I've done this is in order to go into character select mode, we hold down P1 and K1 and P4 and K4. Hold those down for a second and all your buttons will turn white. And at this point, you are in character select mode. And I've laid out by default the 8 original Street Fighter 2 characters in their versus select screen order. So you've got Ryu in the top left, which will be on P1, which goes across to Guile in the top right for P4. Then Ken will be K1, then all along to Dalsim, who will be K4. And assuming you're happy with that, then you don't need to make any changes. But if you wanted to change the layout or you wanted to put in a new character, what you need to do is you need to come into the file Kaimana-0. This was your INO file. It's your starting file for the project. And at the top of this file, there is a list of the characters that are currently in global memory and the array that says in what order they are defined. And this array is P1, P2, P3, P4, K1, K2, K3, K4. So if you wanted to just change the order, all you need to do is take one of these character names and move it to another slot, and then move the one that was there somewhere else, and so on and so forth. If you want to change in a brand new character, what you need to do is you need to define that character and then slot them in. So I am a DJ main, so I have defined DJ. My friend is a Marissa main, so I defined his character for him, so he could have a play on my joystick. So let's say we want to slot in DJ. I'm going to uncomment DJ, and I need to comment out somebody else. The reason you need to comment out somebody else is because every time you define a character, they take up memory, and the Kaimana device has very limited memory, and I am pushing that memory quite hard. So if you don't comment out, the code won't compile. It will complain that it's out of memory. So let's take out GIF. We don't want GIF today. So I'm going to take DJ here, and you take the first name is the name of his class, so you don't need to worry about that, but it's the second name you want, the lowercase version. I'm going to take DJ, and I'm just going to overwrite him in my array. And so now if I compile, I hit verify and upload onto my device, if it's plugged in, then DJ would then be on K3. So I can hold down P1 and K1, I can hold down P4 and K4, hold all four of those together for a second, everything goes white, I hit K3, and now I'm in DJ mode. And the moves that I do on my stick as I'm playing, or even if I'm disconnected, will then mimic the kind of moves that DJ would do. So he will have his charge moves for his fireballs and his up kicks, and he will have all the moves are based on Street Fighter 6, since that's the latest iteration. If I do double rolls and buttons, his super moves will come out. So if you just want to add new characters in, that's how you do it. I will provide the code to Paradise Arcade with these 8 original plus DJ and Marissa, since I've already written them. I may in the future provide more characters, but to be honest, if you watch the rest of this video and you have some basic kind of like knowledge of how to program or some kind of willingness to learn, I think I can take you through how to make your own characters and edit the characters that we already have. Cool. Let's go and have a look at a character, because even if you don't know how to code or want to change them, you want to know what their moves are. So I'm gonna, at the top, all the characters that I've written have their own files. So let's go and have a look at Ryu and click on ryu.cpp. It will look complicated at first. It's not as complicated as it looks. Hopefully I can convey this information to you in an easy to understand way. One thing I need to do first is the way that special moves are defined. If you think about a fireball, you have a movement component, which in a fireball's case is a quarter circle forward. So it's down, down, forward, forward, or down, down, forward, left if you're facing the other way. And then you have what's called like a trigger input. Or what I've defined as a trigger input, which is your punch button that you press to get the move to happen, or if it's say a hurricane kick, you'd be pressing a kick button. Some moves take multiple inputs. For instance, if you wanted to do Dalsim's teleport, you need to press all 3 punch buttons. Zangief's lariat also takes kind of 3 buttons to execute. I haven't coded in any EX moves or drive gauge moves. You could do that if you wanted to as exercise for the user, but for now, you'll see most moves only take 1 button. So there's one function. This is called test for character combos. It's called combos because it's a combo of inputs, but really it's kind of testing for special move inputs. Every file has this defined at the front. The way that it works is because you can specify multiple inputs for a special move. You pass what's called an array, but individual buttons are an array of 1. So I've just defined them handily at the top here. Moves are specified from complicated to least complicated. So super moves tend to come first. Probably your critical art will come first. Then you move on to normal special moves. The reason for that is special moves tend to be super moves. Your critical art is generally using inputs that are used on your easier moves. So your fireball is a quarter circle, your special will be a double quarter circle. So if you specify your fireball first in this function, then what happens is the code will realize you've done the fireball before it has a chance to check for the super fireball, and therefore it will do the fireball animation and it will clear your history of your inputs, and your super fireball would never come out. So you must put your more complicated moves first so that it does it in the right order. So I'm actually going to scroll down to the bottom to the simpler moves. So at the bottom we have fireballs and hurricane kicks. These are the most basic moves that Ryu has. And every individual line is testing for a specific input string. So I'm going to highlight this line here. This says test the history of all the switches that I've hit, all the buttons that I've hit, for a combo quarter circle right. That means I'm looking for a quarter circle from down to forward, facing right, with a quarter circle input count. You don't really need to worry about that, but essentially each input has a number of inputs in there. That's for the code to know how many things it's looking for. So in this case, this is actually 3 behind the scenes, but you don't need to know that. So quarter circle right, and then I'm using the K1 array. That's what we defined at the top. I'll just go back and just refresh the K1 array. So it's looking for input K1. So it's looking for a K1 button to be pressed. This is how many inputs are in the K1 array. There's only 1 in there. And false means it's not a charge mood, because charge moods are handled slightly differently under the hood. Now hurricane kicks. The animation that I've picked for hurricane kick is to circle one color around the buttons, in this case white. So it starts from K1 and it goes along to K4, up and then back from P4 to P1, and then it finishes. And it does it in a kind of delayed circular motion meant to represent Ryu spinning round. Because that doesn't have any speed settings on it, it's just an animation that plays, and that's all. You can't do anything speed-wise for it. What I've done here is you say this is the coding symbol for OR. So you say if you're doing this with K1, or you're doing it with K2, or you're doing it with K3, or we're going to do a quarter circle to the left with K1, K2, or K3, if all of those cases, then we're going to do this animation here. And this animation, the settings here are saying I want to do one loop of this color, and the color is white. The reason why we do left and right is because there's no feedback from the game into your joystick. The joystick doesn't know if you're facing left or right. It doesn't even know that you're playing Ryu. It doesn't even know that it's connected to the game. The Kaimana doesn't really care at all. So the simplest way to do this is just to say, look, if you do this motion in one of the directions, I'm going to play an animation. Let's be honest, if you're playing a game, you're not looking at your joystick. This is mostly for other people who might be watching you at the time, or if you're messing around, showing your friends before you start playing. So we don't really care which direction you're facing, so we specify it both ways. It also, unfortunately, means if you are going to stick with my code, I haven't written moves that use the same motion input and same button press. An example of this would be a character that has a forward quarter circle and punch does one move, and a backwards quarter circle and punch does a different move. You can't support that in this way. But if you wanted to rewrite this, if you were advanced enough, you wanted to rewrite all of these files, you could split these apart and say, okay, if I do it to the right, I do this move. If I do it to the left, I do the other move. And just accept that when you're playing the game, the animation won't necessarily match what your character's doing, but then it never really does anyway. This is really just for fun. So that's up to you. Fireballs use an animation called wave effect. And what that does is it streams colors across the buttons in a direction. But I've written that to have speed settings. It's more because of the type of animation, it makes more sense. So what I've done here is I've split the fireball into 3 separate if statements, 3 separate test cases. So for instance, we'll do fireball to the right because that's kind of more understandable. So here we're going to say I want to test to see if I'm doing a quarter circle to the right with a quarter circle input count, which is 3. So it's like 3 movement hidden behind this kind of variable with 3 inputs. I want to test for the P1 button being held, which is a single button. It's not a charge move. And if that happens, I want to do this animation here, wave effect combo animation, left to right because I'm facing right. I want it to be slow because it's my light punch version, and Ryu's light punch fireball goes slower than his other ones. No loops, which I'll come to later, and I want it to be coloured cyan because his fireballs are generally kind of cyany blue in colour. But If I do it with a medium punch with P2, I actually want to do this, in this case, with the medium speed. And if I do it with his heavy punch with P3, then I want to do it fast. As you look through various characters, you'll see that these two style of layouts are pretty much the only styles of layouts that are around. You really don't have to understand more than that. You either have individual buttons causing slight variations on animation, or all buttons are lumped together. Pretty simple. Um, so I'll just move up and go through the rest of his animations. I won't go through every character, but I'll just take through the rest of the review. Here is his dragon punches. Exactly the same, except this time we're not using a quarter circle. There is a variable called combo DP left, which is I want to do a dragon punch to the left. And in this case, I flash the buttons, the color white, and I hold them lit for 250 milliseconds. So it's a quick flash if you do a light dragon punch, because his light dragon punch doesn't take as long, it doesn't go as high. But if I do a medium punch version, his P2 one, then I hold them for half a second, 500 milliseconds. And if I do his heavy punch version, which is his big one, and if you do this and you miss, you're going to get take a lot of punishment, then I hold that for 3/4 of a second. If you are new to this and you want to have a little bit of a play, these are good things that you could change to see how they affect. You can change colors, you can change these values and see how your stick reacts. It's a good little kind of first little taster. Going up, we've then got his super fireball. He has two super fireballs, but as I've explained, because they both use the double quarter circle on punch buttons, I can only kind of define one of those. So in this case, I've chosen his Shinku Hadouken level 1 super art. So combo double quarter circle right with the right number of inputs, P1, P2, or P3. And if you do that, I haven't bothered to do speeds for these because the super fireballs look coolest. I think the animation looks coolest if you use medium. So I've done do the wave effect. It's going to go from left to right. It's medium speed, and this is a loop count. So the animation for fireballs will hold and sine wave, which means it kind of lowers and increases the intensity in a smooth fashion at the top or at the most bright, the cyan colors. So kind of ramp up, down, up, because two loops, and then it will fade off back to black, and it zooms across the screen because his Shinku Fireball has like a slightly longer effect, and in the old days it was multiple sprite animations kind of connected together. So that's how I specified that. If he's doing the left version, then he's doing it from right to left is the only difference. It goes the other way. So it'll actually start on P4, K4 and then come across to P1, K1. And then finally, I've done his Shin Shuriken Critical Art Level 3 Super, which is exactly the same except it uses the K buttons here, K1, K2, K3, and it's exactly the same. I've done a right version which flashes all the buttons white, or I do a left version which also does them white. These two could be combined into a single if statement. I think I've just missed that for some reason, but it doesn't really make a huge difference. They both do the same thing. Cool, so that is a basic character. If you wanted to make changes or you wanted to write your own character, all you need to do is you can start, a good base would be to copy ryu.cpp into in your file explorer, rename it to your new character. So let's say we want to make a JP character. We could do jp.cpp and then come in here and you change this to say JP, and then you would go in and you would rewrite all of this to specify his animations, his special moves. Some of his special moves will share inputs and with Ryu, so you can just literally kind of grab a block of code and then just change the comment. You might change the animation that it plays. You might slightly change some of the inputs that it has. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, I'm sure there's somebody who would help you out, maybe on Reddit or something. But have a go. You can't really break Kaimana by upload. If it doesn't compile, it won't upload. So, I do encourage you to give this a go if you wanted. It is good fun when you kind of write your own characters and feel like you've accomplished something. If this is new to you, so that might be something to do. If you've done this file, you've written JP in here, written all of this to be how you want. Then we go into characters.h up here, and this is where we specify the actual characters. And all you need to do, this is very simple, all you need to do is take the Ryu character, I will show you how to do this here, and copy that, and then just rename it to be JP. So you've written JP character, and that is it. As long as this JP here matches the name that you had in your jp.cpp, which goes here, then it will work. I do suggest you change this in the comments and add your name just in case you want to pass this around, because it's always useful so people know where it came from, but it's not essential. And that would be how you would add a character. And then you'd go back to Kaimana 0, you'd write him in here. So we do JP. I suggest you do lowercase for his actual. This is the name of the character in this code class. This is the name of the variable, so that's actually what it's made. And then we'd slot JP into this array. So let's replace Geef and we put JP in here. And then we would comment out Geef here. Okay, simple. Right, I'm going to put all that back because I don't want to save that. I haven't actually written him. Let's go back into characters of CPP, character H. Right, I'm going to remove all that. Right, one thing I skipped over while I was doing that is the actual special move, the input definitions. So I'm going to go forward and show you that. So if I go back to reuse.cp, you might be like, oh, how do I know what this is? Where do I find these? Well, these are back in our trusty old Kaimana _ custom.h. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to skip past the initial stuff. And here they are. They start from here. Here are all the special moves that I have written, the inputs that I have written out. So this is, let's look at one of these as an example. So here is my quarter circle input count. This special move has 3 movement inputs in it. So you go hash define quarter circle _ input _ count. I mean, this is just a name. You can call this whatever you want. This is how I've called it. If you ever want to write your own, and I'll come to that a bit later, you can just kind of copy and make these. It's got 3 inputs in it. And then this line says what those inputs are. So a combo quarter circle right, which has 3 inputs, which is this value here, just copied in. It's input down right, and input right. And then underneath I've specified the left version as well. The left version of that is down, left, left. Simple. So if you want to write your own character and you're wondering what the names are of the moves and how many inputs they have, all you have to do is come into this file, Kaimana _ custom.h, come to the bottom and find the input that matches the special move definition for your character. So here are half circle right, half circle left. This is dragon punch left and right. This is double quarter circle left and right. Here are charge inputs. This is charge right left, charge left right, charge down up. There are no charge up downs in any of the Street Fighter games, so that hasn't been defined. And then we've got charge supers. Guile still has charge supers in Street Fighter 6. I'm sure some of the other characters probably do as well. Most characters a lot of characters have had their super charges replaced with double quarter circles. Chun-Li has, for instance. But if you need that, then there's charge super right left and charge super left right. And then Geef, because he's a bit of a beast, he's got his 360 input, which if you don't know this, Street Fighter Capcom don't require you to do a 360. They actually only really require you to do 270. So it's called the 270 input count and the 270 left. Now these are a bit more complicated because you can technically start a 270 or 360, however you want to call it, from any direction. So in order for this to work, you have to specify every single starting direction. Now I haven't bothered with the diagonals, but I've done left clockwise, up clockwise, right clockwise, down clockwise, and then I've done left anti-clockwise, up anti-clockwise, right anti-clockwise, down anti-clockwise. That does make things a little bit trickier. I'm going to just slightly segue here. If I go into geefs.cpp, you will see here that when he checks for a pile driver, he has to check every single direction for every single punch, or if he's doing his running bag, his kick supers, his kick buttons. So I'm just going to segue and take you through how this works. So what I'm doing here is I am essentially saying I need to check every direction 3 times. This is a loop. It's called a loop. So I have an index, which is like a counter. So my index starts at 0, and I'm going to stop when my index is equal to 3. This is if this is true, then we run the loop. So if index is less than 3, then do the loop, and then when you finish the loop, this is called an increment kind of call. I'm going to increment index by 1. So start with index will be 0, it will run this bit of code, then it will add 1 to index, it will become 1, it will do it again, then it'll add 1, it would be 2, it will do it again, then it will add 1, it will fail this check because it's no longer less than 3, and it will stop. And this check, this actual huge if statement here, is basically saying, am I doing a 270 starting from left that's clockwise, and then am I doing it starting from up, am I starting from right, am I starting from down, and then am I doing the anti-clockwise versions of those. And then there's a complicated bit of code here that says if my loop counter is 0, so this is called called a tertiary operator. It says, is this true? And if it is, I do this, which is the P1 array. So am I using punch 1? If it's not true, then I do what's on the other side of the colon. So in this case, I have another tertiary operator. So is it 1? If it is, use punch 2. Otherwise, use punch 3. Okay. I know that's probably very complicated. If you're not a coder, this is probably the most complicated thing that we've gone through so far. But because it's here, there is an element of copy and paste that you can use. So if you ever write another character that needed a 270 or a 720, you can kind of copy this into your file, and then if it say was kicks, you just need to change these to K1, K2, K3. So even though it looks complicated, you might not need to, if you haven't fully understood it, you may not need to. And if there are any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to kind of answer in my evenings when I have free time. It's not a problem, I don't mind. So I will shoot up. Here is the same thing for his, I can't remember, he's got a special name for it, but it's essentially his final atomic buster. His level 3 critical art is set out exactly the same way, except instead it's using the 630 input, which is an equivalent of a 720. Again, Capcom doesn't require you to do the full 2 circles. You only need to do 1 circle and then a 270 on top of that. So it's just a leniency they have under the hood. I didn't show you charge inputs. I'll just quickly segue to those. So I did say that on the end, the true or the false is whether it's a charge input. So if you are specifying a charge, so in this case we're doing a sonic boom on Guile, so we're doing charge right to left with the charge input count, which is 2 because it's left to right and then left, doing it on punch 1, then you do need to set this to be true on the end. That's so under the hood, the checking function can check to see whether or not the first input was held for the right amount of time. In Street Fighter 6, that is 3/4 of a second. Historically, we always thought it was 2 seconds back in Street Fighter 2, but actually in Street Fighter 6 it's way quicker. So it needs to know that's true, so it knows to check to see if that's happened. Right, let's go back to the files, the actual definitions. So I did quickly show it in Gives. Here are the 630s. And then these are the triple punch, triple kick inputs that are used for Gief's spinning lariat and his faster spinning lariat, which is his kick version. They're also used on Dawson's teleports, as I alluded to earlier. You might think that you might be wondering, well, Gief doesn't have any inputs for his movement inputs for his lariat, so how do we do that? So I will just show you. If you go to Gief, look at his lariat, what you do is you don't specify anything. This is called an empty array. So just open brace, close brace, and 0 inputs. And the code underneath will just go, okay, well, I don't need to look for those. So as long as I get the trigger 3P and his triple kind of trigger count, which means that there's 3 inputs in here, then I will pass. For the lariat, you can also actually press 2 buttons. In Street Fighter 6, the 3-button version is EX. I said earlier I didn't do EX moves. This is like an exception because historically it's always been 3P. So I have actually said, okay, if he's doing P1 and P2, or he's doing P1 and P3, or he's doing P2 and P3, so he's doing a 2-button version, we're still going to do the animation, which in this case just if you're interested, is a Knight Rider style animation of going from P1 to P4 and then back again. This is the number of loops. This is whether it's the top buttons, the P buttons, or the K buttons. In this case, true means it's going to do the P buttons, and we're going to do it in a red color. And these here are specified at the top of GIF. So if you have a character and you want to do 2-button arrays, you can define these at the top of your character file for ease of use, in the same way that these are defined for every character. If you don't have any, don't define these. They use up memory, so don't put them there if you don't need them, because you're just wasting space. Right, that's how you write a character. That was quite crash course. If you are an experienced coder, I'm sure that was all quite straightforward. But obviously this is a YouTube video. Go back and listen to that a few times. If you've got any questions, if I've skipped anything or I haven't been clear, please ask in the comments. If I get enough questions, I might record a V2 version of this video to help out. But that should get you going if you want to write a new character. I'm going to add another little pause here for a timestamp, and then I will move on to some more advanced concepts. Okay, right. So animations. I have talked about a couple of the animations, but I haven't really gone into detail of what they're doing or all the options that you have on them. If you're interested in writing animations or you're interested in editing the animations that are already there, then this section is for you. There is a slight caveat, and I will cover that here. I said earlier that that the memory is very limited on the Kaimana, and that is shown by the information down here. So I compiled the program before I started the video, and you can see here it says Sketch uses 27K of program storage space. The maximum is 28K. That's using 95% of the program storage space. Each character uses about 6 to 8%. So if you were to try and add a 9th character, not that there are enough buttons for it, but if you wanted to add a 9th character, we would run out of program space and the program wouldn't compile. If you wanted to write a new animation file, or you wanted to edit an animation that was already there, you are going to eat into the remaining 5% of space. So if you're an advanced coder and you want to do some kind of cool animations, you're going to need to free up some space first. Now you can do that in 2 ways. One way would be to go back and remove some of the extra characters in Kaimana 0. So if you want to dig into the code, you could change it so that the number of characters is 4, for instance, and then you could take 4 entries up here, you could take 4 of these away, you'd free up a load of memory. An easier way would just be to get rid of 4 of these and then just set the last 4 of these to be repeats of the characters you've got in earlier. That would free up a load of memory. If you're really dedicated, then as a task for the user, you could go in and take some of these functions and optimize them. For instance, things like this are used a lot. If this with K, like K1, K2, K3, like it's used in a lot of places, you could move those into the base character class and then free up some space that way. I don't think you'd free a lot of space. That's why I haven't bothered to do it. But if you're an advanced coder and you wanted to, you could do that. But yeah, an easier way would be just to remove some characters. So animations. Animations.cpp is the file you want. Everything is specified in here. The provided Kaimana code gives you this animation idle, which is to cycle the colors on the buttons when you're not doing anything. I haven't changed that. That works how it always did. There's some tournament mode stuff if you've are playing a tournament which don't allow lights. That's just turning on and off. But the bulk of the stuff, the actual interesting stuff that I want to talk about is from here downwards. The fireball animation was provided by Paradise Arcade, but it was quite basic. It only went left to right. There was nothing to do with speeds. It was written wasn't written very optimally, so I basically rewrote the whole thing. And the function that starts it is this one here. And we've talked about this earlier because when I went through Ryu, but it's do a wave effect combo animation. Specify the direction, specify speed, and specify the number of loops. and then there's the color information for it. And this will go through and will do uh, a wave animation in multiple directions. If, for instance, you wanted to change the speed, so if you think it goes too slowly, for instance, then the information you want is where is it? Sorry, excuse me. Here. So just down from the early part, then store of speed and advance used at the end of the loop. So for instance, if you're in advanced code, you might want to come in and change these settings. So fireball speed slow, fireball speed medium, fireball speed fast. These are specified in animations.h. Here we go. We've got, here we go, slow, medium, and fast. So the slow fireball moves forward at 2 counts per frame, and the medium one goes at 4, and the fast one goes at 6. So if you wanted this to go slower, you could set this to be 1, and then you might want to adjust medium and fast as well. If you want them to go faster, you can increase them. I suggest strongly you keep them as a multiple of 2, but it doesn't really matter. At least I don't think it does. And then I'm not going to go into the full workings, but I'm going to kind of go through the animations more as a useful exercise. I have a Knight Rider animation. This is used for Geef's lariat that goes left to right across the punch or the kick buttons. You specify the number of loops, whether it's the top row or the bottom row, and the color. These colors, as I say, are defined, so you're not specifying 3 individual values. I can just quickly nip back. You are just specifying a color define, and the colors are all specified in Kaimana.h, I believe. Here they are. These are the preset colors. You could always write a new one if you had a specific color you wanted to do. These are red, blue, and green values from 0 to 255. So 255 means fully on. So red is all the red color and no blue and no green. Back to animations. The next one, this is to flash all the animations. This was provided by Paradise Arcade, and literally just turns the colors on for the flash time and then turns them back off again. So we have circle 1 color combo animation. This says start from K and go anti-clockwise, circling through RGB. This is a helper function, so you can ignore this. But it basically says how many loops am I going to do and what color am I going to do it in. So if I specify the loops as 2 and the color is white, it will go round in a circle twice and then it will finish. And then the circle RGB combo animation, which is a special version. Again, it has the number of loops, but it will cycle red, then blue, then green. And if you've specified 2 loops, it will do red, blue, green again, and then black will come in and replace everything. I have flash all speed increasing. This was provided by Paradise Arcade as well for Ryu's Shin Shuriken Critical Art Street Fighter 4. It flashes all the buttons the color that you specify, but the speed is increasing, which is this array here. So the first time they're lit for a tenth per second, then they're lit for 80 milliseconds, then 60, and so on and so forth. Once the last one has happened, they go black, and then eventually it will go back to the idle. So if you think they flash too fast, or you want them to flash for longer, all you need to do is say that you want more entries in here. So there's 7 currently. You could say more in here, and then you could put more values in, and they would flash for longer or at a different frequency. That's quite easy to edit to make. If you're not that much into coding, you could make that change. That'd be quite easy. Excuse me. Randomized buttons. This is for things like Blanca's electricity and Honda's 100-hand slap. You can say how many buttons you want to flash, how long they should be individually lit for, how long there should be between each button once it's gone out before the next one starts, and then the color that you would like that to be. As an example, I would just nip back into Blanca, and I will show you his lightning attack, so electric thunder. So in the default case, I flash 16 individual buttons. They're on for 60 milliseconds. There's a gap of 30 milliseconds between them, and they flash yellow. If you wanted them to last longer, just up this value here. If you want them to the whole thing to last for longer, you can up the number of flashes that you get. It looks quite cool. Give it a go. If you want to feel like editing it, please do. Back to animations. And that's it. Those are all the animations that I've written. That does I think that covers every character in the base roster to with a fair bit of variety. But the scope. This is where the Kaimana coding gets quite cool. Like there's lots of cool things that people could do here that I don't think have been done, and there's a lot of scope for people to write cool animations. So please, if you are at all interested in doing that, please go away and do that. Share it with the community. We could get some kind of cool stuff doing, hand back as I'm trying to do here. And that's kind of about it, really. It's been a lot of fun rewriting this code, and I think for end users who are getting into this for the first time, I think this is a better starting point than what we had before. I think it's easy. It should be slightly easier to set up, um, and the extra support that kind of is in here now means that if you buy slightly different components, like if you buy the J4s, you don't have any teething issues that I had trying to get them up and running. So please use this. Let me know if it has helped you or if it has any problems, and I can kind of do my best to try and help out.